Oh, this next group's really interesting, actually. Great transition. This is Group J, the group with the future winner. We've got the New York Red Bulls, the future winner, of course, Pachuca and Toronto FC. Connor, hit me with locations and hit me with new signings.
I thought you were going to say hit me with your best shot.
Hit me with your best shot.
Thank you. I'll take that, even if it was late. RBNY versus Toronto is going to be at Red Bull Arena in New Jersey. Pachuca against Toronto is going to be at BMO Field in Toronto, not LA. Pachuca versus RBNY is going to be at Red Bull Arena. So we got two in New Jersey. We got one in Toronto and zero for Pachuca. In terms of signings, big signings, winter 2024, we talked about it many, many times at this point, but RBNY bringing in Emil Forsberg from RB Leipzig was a big signing for them and for the league. For Pachuca, I've gone for Nelson Diosa, who came over from Atletico Huila, something like that. Toronto, no big signings from winter 2024. Summer 2024, no big signings for Red Bull or Toronto yet. For Pachuca, I've gone for Borja Bastón from coming over from Real Oviedo. I think he had some time with Swansea, which people might remember him for.
Hmm. So lots of good signings coming in, and we'll start with the best of the best, New York Red Bulls. They are going into Leagues Cup with a challenge. It's the Sandro Schwartz takes the best team in the world to Leagues Cup and looks to earn more than just a bunch of draws challenge. But it's the impossible edition because Red Bull are basically no midfield depth. They have strikers who can't score. I mean, even when the goalkeeper passes to them on the top of the box, they can't hit the net if the thing was the size of the end line. It's unbelievable. Their back line's good, right? They topped their group in 2023 before bowing out to Philly in PKs in the round of 16. In the league, they just picked up their first win in 6 after beating some small team out of Ohio. I'm not really relevant. Cincinnati,
Hey,
something like that.
both of our teams beat some small teams out of Ohio this weekend.
Facts, big facts, big facts. They have only lost 4 games all season, but they just keep getting draws, which may be helpful in this, but we haven't been great in penalties. I think like I just mentioned, we bowed out of League Cup on penalties. We bowed out of the playoffs on penalties. We bowed out of the Open Cup last year on penalties. Like penalties don't do us well. So draws are great, but when they lead directly to penalties, not so great. Who are you watching for this team?
I'm watching Lewis Morgan because he is the single goal scorer on this team. Because as you stated, the history of Red Bull is that they cannot get strikers who score goals. And that continues with Dante Vanzier, who has 2 goals in 1,500 minutes, which is a terrible return for a striker. I know he's getting involved in other ways and he has a lot of assists, but you're a striker. You got to score goals. And so the burden seems to be with Lewis Morgan, who has 12 so far this year. He's the key, I think, to Red Bull's attack. I know Emil Forsberg. Well, I think he's injured. Is he out all of League's Cup?
Yeah, he won't. He's in a boot. He's not coming back from Leagues Cup.
Okay. So yeah, then I think it's even more on Lewis Morgan's shoulders here. So I think he's going to be the key to this Red Bull attack. So I'll be keeping an eye on him.
Yeah. So again, as a the resident Red Bull fan in the room, I'm not legally allowed to watch anything that gives me joy or hope. So I'm watching Dante Vanzier because never have I ever seen a number 9 down so freaking bad. And I watched Dominic Calvert-Lewin not score for like 20 games for Everton until he got a penalty. This dude cannot score to save his life. And I will quote the tweet that I put out for Wednesday's game when he literally had the ball against Montreal, passed him at the top of the box with nobody in there, and he didn't even hit the frame of goal. Dude cost $5 million. He can't hit the frame of goal from 12 yards out with nobody in front of him. But here's what I tweeted. I said, if you took all the money that you paid Dante Vanzier, then you multiply it by the number of millimeters from here to the sun, and then you multiply that number by 1 billion, and you said, Dante, here's this much money, and that value is the amount of money you gave him, that much money still would not buy him a goal. That is how down bad he is because it doesn't matter if he's on a breakaway, if he's shooting from distance, if he's shooting from mid range, like cross, it doesn't matter. Headers doesn't matter. Does not score. He needs a good spell to break this goal scoring drought. This can be where he does it because there's again we want to see all of our teams, especially Red Bull. I'd love to see Red Bull win the cup, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, I don't mind if we use this as something to fix the little problems that we have, right? Dante Vanzier being unable to score. or figuring out how to use Dante where we don't need him to score, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but he's so good in hold up play. He combines really well when Lewis Morgan's on the field. When you drift him out wide, he's decent at service. Like there's so many things that he does well. Scoring just is not one of them. So I'm half tempted to say, hey, play him as one of our wide attacking midfielders and see what he can do. This is a perfect place to do it. It doesn't really have any impact on the league, things like that. So I'm watching to see if we can figure out how to use Dante Vanzeir properly. Let's move on to Pachuca, the Liga MX side in this group, a team that won the 2023 CONCACAF Champions Cup. They're led by Guillermo Almada headlining Group J. I shouldn't say headlining Group J. Red Bull are in it. They're like the understudies of Group J. Tons of talent all over the field. This will probably be one of the favorites to win the competition after their impressive run in the Champions Cup. 7th in the Clausura right now. They were 7th in the Clausura last season, currently 8th in the Apertura. They know how to get it done in knockout games, as shown by their run this season in the Cup. They also will want to have a better showing than 2023, where they lost to Houston on penalties in the first round. Who are you watching?
Going for the Venezuelan Salomon Rondon. He is a great scorer at many different clubs. Well, I used maybe I shouldn't use the word great. His goal scoring record it's good at times and it's not so good at other times. But with Pachuca, he's got 8 goals in 1,300 minutes from last season. I don't believe he's played yet this season because of Copa America. And so I think he could be a massive difference maker in this group. I think Rondon, even if he struggled at certain times in his very long career over in Europe, I do think he is very experienced and he's going to be very tough to handle for any defense that he comes up against. I think RBNY might be the best shape out of this group to handle him, but I think he can like run riot on Toronto potentially. But he could be a massive difference maker if he gets going.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'd be remiss not to call out this former Everton bum who just turned into an MLS killer. I mean, he goes over to Everton, dude. I mean, I swear, if he touched the ball 4 times, you touched the ball 1,000,000 times. Like, I can't even remember if he was on the field half the time, but he never scored for us.
Scored
but
once.
The second, that doesn't count. Whatever it was doesn't count. The second he comes over and starts playing MLS sides, starts beating the bum out of him. So he couldn't do it for the best English team in the world, but he did have 19 goals in 27 appearances last year for Pachuca, an amazing CCC run. He did well for Venezuela in the Copa America. He's going to be a handful for people to watch. So good pick. The team that's going to have to figure them out, as you were hinting to, Toronto FC in John Herdman's first year. They've been better than most people have predicted. I mean, they're certainly not having like the worst season in history, like somebody.
Yeah, okay. Try to put the blame on me. Yeah.
But they still have a lot of work to do. They're in 8th on goal difference for the wild card spot and have a lot of teams that are very close to their tail. So they got to clean things up. They want to hold on to it. Talk to me about who you are watching.
So I went for one of the Italians, but not the Italian that I think many people will suspect. I've gone for Bernardeschi. Huh?
Oh, I was going to say Crescito left.
He did.
A while ago.
It's actually Petretta. That's who I'm going for.
Nice.
I'm going for Bernardeschi, who I think has been probably the best player for Toronto this season. And no matter where he's been played, I believe he's been played sometimes as a wing back, sometimes as a winger. But he's been very good for them. He has 8 goals, 5 assists so far this season. And that's with the fact that they have moved him around in different spots, some instances way further down the field. But I think he's going to have to be on his A game for this team to get success in this tournament. I think they got a bit of a tough group here. I think Red Bull is obviously a very solid team, like you said, does not lose a lot. And then Pachuca, I mean, we're talking about CONCACAF Champions League winners from literally this season. So 2 teams that they're going up against are really tough, and they're going to need the best out of Bernardeschi and Insigne in order to potentially get anything out of this group.
Yeah, I was really shocked to see his positioning in this Toronto team, and then even more shocked to see his success in that position. Because, I mean, you've always thought about him as an out-and-out winger and having to do that extra bit of running. I thought he was just going to switch off, but Herdman's got him to buy in, which I think is really, really good. For
Yeah,
me,
maybe
oh,
that's
go ahead.
the way to go in the future because the FCC did that with Barreal as well, and that worked out super well.
Yeah, and we've talked about a while ago the difficulty from converting a winger to a wing back versus a straight fullback to a wing back. And you have to have the right person to do it. And you also have to have the right coach to convince people. Because I don't think it was a matter of talent with him. I think it was a matter of mentality where he thought he maybe would have been too good for it or it's below me. I wouldn't do that
Hmm.
because that was kind of the vibe he was giving off in his first season or so, kind of like oh, I'm too good for this. So that's where I was more surprised with it, which I think is really good. um for me, again, I'd be remiss not to bring in a member or a former member of one of my teams, and that is DEJ7 Derek Etienne Jr. And he hasn't been playing a ton of minutes this year. He started a slew of games recently and has 2 goals in his last four, and he's playing more of a central role, according to Transfer Market at least. And I haven't seen a lot of Toronto just yet, so I'm interested to see if this fits his play style a little bit better and how he gets on in this new role. That's kind of what I'll be keeping an eye on because there's nothing I love more than watching the former players that we deem not good enough for us going and being good for other people. Just makes me feel really great. So I'd love to see more of that. But one thing I'd also love to see is your predictions. Go ahead and hit me with it.
I'm gonna go with Pachuca at one. I think their experience in knockout tournaments has been proven with the CONCACAF Champions League. I think they have a lot of quality in that team as well, led by Solomon Rondon, and I think they'll be able to carry that into a top place finish in this group. A close second, I've got Red Bull. I think their ability to avoid losses is going to be massive. It's going to be huge for the group stages and their ability to at least get points in games that they may not necessarily deserve to get points in. And then I got Toronto last, which is a bit tough on them because I think one of their specialties this season has been the ability to get wins and get points out of games that they had no business getting wins or points out of, which is a great thing to have for these types of tournaments. But I'm a little bit worried with the fact that they've only scored one of four penalties according to FBref this year, so that could genuinely, I think, be a factor in the group stages where 1 point can make the difference, and that could be winning a penalty shootout versus losing.
As I mentioned, I'm not even remotely allowed to be excited or hyped or energized. So I've got Pachuca at one, as you mentioned, just kind of the foam on the top there. They're the best of the best in this group at least. I then have gone with TFC at two, and it's less about TFC at two and more about New York Red Bull at three. As I mentioned, we have trouble scoring. We're not good in penalties. We're young. We have no depth. I mean, and players are starting to step up, but I think somebody put it really well on Twitter yesterday. We are a rolled ankle and a cold away from playing Dante Van Zier as a number six. Like that's how thin we are right now. And I reckon that this might be I don't want to say a throwaway tournament for them, but they need people to get healthy. They need time off to kind of recover and work on things. And I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing guys like Bento Estrella, 16 years old, Steven Swerda, who's from the Red Bull 2 system, Omar Valencia, a left back from the twos who play for Panama this Copa. Julian Hall getting minutes, like really get the young guys out there, let them run out against the big boys, see what they can do, and then wrap it up for a month, get everybody healthy, and then push for the top, push to keep the top four in the tournament. I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. Now, I don't think they're going to throw it away per se, but I don't think they're going to be too bothered if they get out.